Let me show you a few tips for instant relief. What we talked about before is ways of coping in general, strategies of coping. But there are things you can do instantly. And I learned this by experience. But they are useful tips, and there's more in the book. If you sit comfortably in your chair, well, let me tell you a story. I was driving onto the grounds at Ames one morning early, and I was driving behind the car, a man that was driving, and his shoulders were up to his ears, scrunched up. And when I got a little closer, the back of his neck was very red. He was a fair man. I thought, oh boy, he's got problems. So as he turned off towards the main building and I drove by him, I saw it was Al Worden, the Apollo astronaut who circled the moon. I went to my office and I called him up. I said, Al, are you all right? Oh, yes, he said, fine. Thank you for calling. I said, are you sure you're all right? Well, he said, as a matter of fact, it's been a hard week. And I have so many problems. He said, how did you know? I said, well, all I saw was your shoulders up to your earlobes and your red neck. Oh, he said, that's very interesting. I said, now, take a pause, take a few breaths, and take it from there. He said, well, thank you very much, Joan. That's very useful. And we talked about it afterwards many times and laughed. You all know what a stressed person looks like. You can see someone and say, oh, do you have a problem? Are you all right? How do you know whether to ask that question? It's because they show signs, right? Their jaw is clenching and twitching. Shoulders are scrunched up. They might be clenching their fists. They might be picking their fingers. They certainly may be frowning. These are just simple things. Someone may have dieted and think they look wonderful because they've slimmed down, but boy, their face looks 100 years old because they haven't dealt with stress in their lives. Because cortisol breaks down for fuel everything. Muscle, bone, skin that's made up of collagen. All these muscle, bone, skin are all collagen-based. You start breaking down collagen, and the first thing you do is you age. Plain and simple. Not to mention that your joints and your ligaments start wearing out. And we know that because people treated with cortisol show these changes. Your blood sugar goes sky high, your blood pressure increases. So all these things collectively make you look like someone stressed. What can you do? Well, if you sat down there and put your hands on your belly, which is not very pretty, number one, you scrunch your shoulders down, away from your earlobes. Okay? Consciously pull your shoulders down. Okay. Now, breathe into your belly. Push your hands out. It's not pretty. Not up here. And don't raise your shoulders. You can practice and get it done. What happens is that the upper part of the lung has nerve endings that stimulate an increase in heart rate, the sympathetic nervous system, an increase in heart rate, increase in rapid breathing. So what you're doing is, when you're anxious, and the more you do that, the more stimulated you get. And that, again, is to run, to survive, to fight. The body doesn't recognize why. It just says, okay, I'm stressed, I better do this. The lower part of the lung has nerve endings that soothe and calm and lower the heart rate. So when you send air into your lower lung, which we don't do very often, it's often a forgotten thing. You learn in yoga how to do it and in other conditions like that. But if you breathe into the lower part of your lung, you will instantly relax. But the best trick of all is dropping your jaw. Okay? Now my co-director at NASA headquarters, Bob Rome, I would sit across from the table from me and I would see his blood pressure rising, redder face, as our boss pushed everyone's buttons. And I said to Bob, you're not going to last long. Oh, he said, I just can't stand it. I said, look, I'll teach you a little trick. Just drop your jaw. There's no way you can be stressed with your jaw dropped. So, at the directors' meetings, we'd sit there and I could see Bob getting more and I'd drop my jaw and he'd look at me and then he'd drop his jaw. Of course, we cracked up. And that instantly was a relief right there, because laughter is a great stress reliever. Instant stress reliever. Our boss was furious. Why were we laughing, for nothing at all? He hadn't said anything that should have caused us a great deal of mirth. But we relaxed and got away with it. Instant relief. Drop your jaw is the best thing you can do ever. Shoulders down, drop your jaw, breathe. And there are more in there. As Charles Darwin said, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but those most responsive to change. Change is the signal that we call stress. And how we handle change, good or bad, is a question of how we survive.